90% of people in America still earn every single dollar by trading hours of their life for it, hour by hour, while only about 10% report meaningful passive income. Today, I'm going to show you exactly whether starting an active business or building passive income makes more sense for your age and your budget right now. Because these two are not opposites, they're just different tools, and choosing the wrong one for yourself can quietly steal away the most productive decade of your entire life. I've spent years studying exactly which people move from one income path to the other, and honestly, they're almost never the people you'd expect. So let's walk through two real examples: what passive income actually is, how an active business really works, three key differences that shift depending on your age, and exactly when each strategy earns its place. I've met people in their late 50s who no longer have to wake up early and rush off to a job. And it's not because they retired early, it's because at some point they built a system that kept earning for them while they slept, while they traveled, even on a lazy Sunday morning over breakfast. And what always catches me off guard is how small and unremarkable the beginning usually looked. Nothing flashy, nothing that would ever go viral. So let's actually define passive income properly because most people get this wrong. Passive income is money that comes in without you spending your hours on it in that moment. Think of it like a fruit tree you planted. You spend real time digging, planting, watering, and eventually that tree starts producing on its own. In the US, that usually means bonds, savings interest, dividends, rental income, royalties, or an automated digital business. And here's the part: nobody says out loud passive income isn't passive at the start. It demands real upfront capital or real time or often both. Just from S&P 500 dividends alone, with a historical yield of around 1.3%, you'd need to have invested close to $3.8 million to generate $50,000 a year. And let's be honest, how many people actually have that kind of money sitting around? But here's the part that actually matters. You don't need to hit that number on day one. What you need is to start early and stay aggressively consistent, putting money into an index fund every single month through dollar cost averaging, no matter what the market's doing, which, by the way, is exactly what I do with my own money. Now, let's compare that to an active business. Imagine running a restaurant. You physically have to be there, you're dealing with staff, suppliers, the books, and the moment you're not there, the business doesn't run the same way. That's really the defining feature. Your time and your attention are directly baked into the business itself. According to the Kauffman Foundation's 2025 Startup Activity Index, the highest rate of new entrepreneurship in America right now isn't among 25-year-olds, it's among people between 55 and 64. And honestly, that surprised me the first time I read it. Because once you're in your 50s and beyond, you're carrying experience and know how that a 25-year-old simply doesn't have yet, often a real network, and frequently real savings. Bernie Marcus was fired at 50 and went on to co found the Home Depot. Mike Bloomberg started his company at 39. Ray Kroc turned McDonald's into a franchise empire at 52. Vera Wang designed her first wedding dress at 40. So age is rarely the barrier to financial growth. People assume it is, it's often the advantage, but after 50, the real cost of an active business is your most limited resource: time, and it's a resource you don't get back. I once knew someone who was laid off at 58, and by 63, after spending his whole career in corporate roles, instead of going back out to job hunt, he took his severance and started a consulting practice. The first 2 years were genuinely rough. He worked harder than he ever had, but by year three, he was earning multiples of his old salary, and by year five, he'd automated enough of the business that it had become semi passive. And to be clear, The goal was never choosing between passive income and an active business. The goal is using one to build the other. So let me walk you through the three differences that actually matter. First, the cost of entry. Passive income typically demands capital upfront. At today's median U.S. home price of around $360,000, a 20% down payment on a rental property means $72,000. Before you've even accounted for repairs, insurance, or a single vacant month, an active business can start with a fraction of that. According to the Small Business Administration, the average cost to start a micro business is under $3,000. Building passive income is a bit like buying an apartment building. Starting a business is more like renting a market stall. Both bring in money, but the entry doors look completely different. Second, the risk curve, and this shifts sharply with age. The average American in their 50s or early 60s has around $180,000 combined across a 401k and IRA accounts. With a life expectancy pushing toward 80, and if you're 55 and you pour that into a business that fails, you've wiped out your retirement savings, but risking 20% of it while keeping the rest invested makes that risk something you can actually carry. This really isn't a passive income versus active business question at all. It's a question of how much capital you can afford to put at risk. Third, speed of return. And here, age becomes the deciding factor. If you're 35 and you invest $500 a month into an index fund for 30 years at an average 10% return, you'll land around $1.1 million. Compound interest does the heavy lifting, but if you're 55 with only 10 to 15 years ahead of you, that same $500 a month gets you to roughly $200,000, a solid amount, but not exactly life changing on its own. A well run active business moves faster. Professional service businesses typically run profit margins between 15 and 25% and can turn cash flow positive within 6 to 12 months. So, if you're in your 30s, consistent investing is your strongest ally. But if you're in your 50s, an uncomplicated high margin business can hand you speed, while whatever it produces gets funneled into building passive income in parallel. Let me show you what that actually looks like through Aria and Alexander, both 52, both earning similar salaries. Aria has $140,000 saved and decides she wants passive income. She puts $70,000 down on a rental property in San Antonio, where the median home price runs around $265,000. Rent comes in at $1,600 a month. But after the mortgage, insurance, taxes, and upkeep, her net cash flow is $180 a month. That's $2,160 a year. She didn't make a bad decision. She bought smart and she has a tenant. But her real return is about 3% a year, and she committed half her savings to get it. Alexander takes a completely different path. Instead of buying property for rental yield, he puts $2,500 into launching a supply chain consulting business built on 20 years of industry experience. He sets up a simple website, opens a LinkedIn profile, and starts pitching mid-size companies. Nothing happens for the first 3 months. In month 4, he lands his first client, a $3,500 contract. By month 6, he has 3 regular clients and is earning an extra $6,000 a month, all while keeping his full-time job, working nights and weekends, and every month he puts $4,000 into an index fund, reinvests $1,000 back into the business, and keeps $1,000 for himself. A year in, Aria's earned an extra $2,160. Alexander has invested $48,000, built a business bringing in $72,000 a year, and his original $140,000 in savings is still almost untouched. 5 years later, both of them 57 now. Aria has accumulated around $10,800 in cash flow, plus whatever appreciation her home has picked up. Alexander has over $300,000 invested in the market, a business he's begun partially handing off, and a real option to retire at 60 if he wants to. The difference wasn't talent and it wasn't luck, it was sequencing. Alexander used his active business as the engine that funded his passive income. Araya poured everything into passive income without first building a big enough capital base. So here's what I really want you to take from all this. There's no single clean answer, but there is one principle I've found to be true every time. If you don't have serious capital yet, the fastest way to get there is building an active business around something you already know how to do. And once that income starts flowing, you move it into investments that work for you while you sleep. The finance writer Morgan Housel captures this well in his book on the psychology of money. Wealth is what you don't see. It's the money you didn't spend, quietly compounding in the background. But to have something to invest, you first have to earn more than you spend. And that's exactly where an active business proves its worth. If you're in your 30s, you have time on your side. So invest consistently and let compound interest do the heavy lifting over 30 years. If you're in your 50s, you don't have 30 years ahead of you, but you have something just as valuable, experience and relationships nobody can take from you. So use them because it was never really about choosing one path over the other. It was always about combining both in the right order at the right time and actually moving. I look forward to your questions in the comments. I read every single one of them. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.